exposure. And sometimes it'll even give you that in the preview before you even have to take a picture. But if not, you could take a picture and then kind of work from there, work backwards almost. And binoculars, like you said, probably the best thing to do. And as always, getting away from city lights is preferable and maybe necessary in this case.
What about weather producers with tower cameras? Do they have any chance of seeing
see, that's the problem right now. This is the problem with our night sky. Sunset just happened. You're probably going to have to wait till about 8 o'clock local time, Tim, for it to be dark enough to see this. But by that time, it's pretty low in the horizon. So there's your graphic, I think, is a great view. So just to give you a perspective, that's only 10 degrees above the horizon, Tim. And if you hold your hand out with a closed fist, your fist is roughly about 20 degrees from your eye length, just to give you an idea. So this is pretty low. So if you have trees or buildings in the northwest of your backyard, you're probably going to have a tough time. You need a clear view of that horizon, which is half the battle, in my opinion, just having a wide open spot to see this thing.
What's been cool the last couple of years, though, is we've had a few of these minor comet events. They're not guaranteed. You don't always get these things. And there have been a couple of nice occasions where you've had opportunity to see these. And I've already gotten a couple of viewers that have been able to spot it. And I'm hopeful that this week, as this week goes on, it's a great time of year for this to happen because you have cold air. You have cold, crisp nights, and we've just been remarking on, wow, you can see Charlotte from, the next state over or whatever. That means there's great visibility. And so that'll give you the least obstruction, the least humidity, that's kind of haziness in the air. You have your best chance, at least, to see it.
Yeah, I agree totally. That's why I like this time of year, because the visibility is great. And remember, we're losing about 2.5 minutes a day or so of sunlight. So that's why every night this week, this gets brighter, but you also get more time for it to be darker for you to see it. So if you don't see it tonight, don't get upset. It's really visible through the end of the month into early November. The peak time, looking at the light curve, so I look at this site called the Comet database. It's actually a pretty cool site. It shows the light curve, which is the lower the number is the more magnitude. Just so you know, 4 is about the maximum for naked eye visibility in a city. 3 is usually what most people say. This peaks at about 4.1 on the 26th through the 1st. So and that red line is perihelion. That's when it's closest to the sun. So if you kind of pick that sweet spot where it's super bright and it's close to the sun, might be the best time. But all week long, I got a new toy. I'm going to try to get a view of it tonight. I got a smart telescope. I'm going to give it a whirl. And if I get a good picture, we'll share it with you later this week, Tim.
Big ball of ice hurtling through space, and we get to see it.
All right, stick around. We've got more news coming up right after this break.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here for Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We'll be together for the next couple of hours. Did want to give you a quick peek at what it looks like out the door, since we are seeing some beautiful views for this time of night as we start to see the sun set a little bit earlier and earlier as we get closer to winter. So there you can see live look at the Dallas Tower camera here in North Carolina. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful sunset, and we are having some fall feels, which kind of like adds to the whole allure. I did have my snack break outside earlier today and actually got a little bit chilly and had to come back in. After all these
had
weeks,
time for a snack break.
I had 10 whole minutes, so.
Oh, man.
Sorry, I didn't mean to rub that
you
10-minute break
coulda
in your
got
face. Nevertheless, y'all can see we have a big full house. Our Julie Kay is here. Before we get to Julie, one more shot to show is, of course, one of the big headlines of the nation here today, day 20 of the ongoing government shutdown. And there you can see live look at the Capitol as
The Senate has adjourned, by the way, until tomorrow.
Okay, that's a good call out there, James, because here in the 3 o'clock hour, we had talked about how the Senate had reconvened. There was a vote scheduled for this evening in the House, which, having not seen any updates on that front, seemingly things are still at an impasse. We do want to talk about politics, but we're going to bring it closer to home here in the Carolinas, as our Julie Kay has been covering here a push as of late by Republicans in North Carolina to change up congressional lines. So kind of transitioning away from our live shot in the Capitol, that could change how the makeup is in Congress.
Absolutely. Yeah, and North Carolina is really interesting. We've seen this happen in other states. Of course, California, it started with Texas. So Texas is where it started with the Republicans, Democrats in California, and now Republicans here in North Carolina. But this is different because you look at what Gavin Newsom is doing, the voters have to approve that in a special election. Here, we can just redraw the maps. Republicans in the state legislature have the simple majority they need in both chambers. The governor cannot veto it. So it is pretty much, although there's still some procedural things that need to happen, and we'll get into that, but it's pretty much set in stone. I spoke with some experts. I spoke with a Democratic representative, Jordan Lopez. He represents Mecklenburg County. Really, the kind of bottom line here is there's nothing that the Democrats can do. This is most likely going to happen. So, of course, this is the eastern part of the state that we're talking about. Districts 1 and 3 would be impacted. That is District 1. Currently represented by Don Davis. He is a Democrat. He's one of the few black representatives that we have in North Carolina, and he would be, he narrowly won election last time. He would be pushed out hypothetically if this went through, because it would become a much more right-leaning district. That would change our overall representation in U.S. Congress to 11 Republicans and 3 Democrats, which is a pretty significant shift. Even though it's just one seat, we already in 2023 had redistricting and went from 7 and 7, an even split, to now 10 and 4 and then 11 and 3. And so I know we talk about North Carolina being kind of a split ticket state. We voted for Trump, but also Governor Stein, who's a Democrat. Different counties voted differently for the presidential and the gubernatorial race. So this is kind of, I think, a shocking representation to the Democrats, who say, you know, this is typically not a 50-50 state, but it's definitely a more purple state. So that representation, they say, does not make up what North Carolina actually is.
Yeah, so you just alluded to the fact that the Democrats have been speaking out against this, including, we heard once again, because it's not brand new today, this messaging, but the governor was speaking on something unrelated, but ended up bringing in, of course, because this is like the hot topic right now in North Carolina politics. What did he have to say today?
He said this is going to have really devastating long-term impacts. He called this a power grab. That is kind of how Democrats are framing it. Basically, what they're all saying, including Governor Stein, is this is going to dilute your vote as a voter. Even if you're not in the eastern part of the state, this changes a lot about how North Carolina will be represented at the national level. Now, a big piece of what Democrats are saying is that this isn't just diluting the vote, it's also diluting the black vote. Don Davis, as I mentioned, one of the few black representatives in Congress, or in North Carolina's congressional representatives. He also represents a largely black population. And so adjusting those districts also people are saying, protesters in particular in Raleigh today, saying this is racial gerrymandering. So that is a big piece of it. I mentioned the protesters were there today. That's because this is the first day they had actual movement. We got those maps last week. Like you mentioned, this isn't a necessarily new topic, but this was the first day that we saw something actually go through. It went through a Senate committee. That's the first official step. And then tomorrow it will be in the House committee on redistricting, where they're expecting public comment. And so I imagine I'll likely be following that tomorrow. This will be our best chance to hear what voters really have to say. I imagine it won't just be people from the eastern side of the state, though I'm very curious if that's what they have to say as well, if people are going to travel to talk in Raleigh. But this is going to be a really interesting moment to see if the voters, if the public agrees with Governor Stein's messaging, what the Democrats have to say, or if they say, no, we want to see this happen.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that will be really interesting to see what that turnout looks like and what folks say. And I mean, to kind of bring back the initial, preface we had to this conversation, that this is kind of a nationwide push, and it's driven by the president, who is essentially, we see usually in midterms historically, whatever party is in power is the party that usually loses seats during the midterms. The president has specifically called for states to do this, saying, we need to preserve the majority here, and we've even heard some of that messaging from North Carolina representatives who are pushing this, including in the Senate.
Yeah, Senate President Pro Tem Phil Berger, I have his quote here. Part of what he said when he announced that this is what they were going to do is he said, "We are doing everything we can to protect President Trump's agenda, which means safeguarding Republican control of Congress." House Speaker Justin Hall said very similar things. Everyone mentions Trump in their statements. They also mention Gavin Newsom in their statements. I do, though, want to be clear that this started in Texas with Republicans. So I expect that I will see other states continue to follow suit. So it'll be interesting to see overall what happens now. But yeah, it is coming directly from the White House. And so I imagine other states will do something similar. North Carolina just happens to be the third state to do it, the second state that it's the Republicans leading it. I do also want to mention, we talked about this in our meeting, just want to throw out there that South Carolina, we're not forgetting about you.
Yeah.
South Carolina, it has been floated. Some very far-right Republicans have said they want to see the districts redrawn. Right now, I believe I have this up here, there are 7 U.S. Congress people for South Carolina. Only one of them right now is a Democrat. And so I think a lot of the fear within the Republican Party is, yes, we could try to do it and make all of them Republican, or would it backfire and it would go the other way? Because right now we have such a strong majority. So I don't think there's any formal push right now, no formal proposals for sure. But South Carolina, we are watching it. There's nothing has got up off the ground yet, and it's not such an expansive agreement amongst the Republican Party like it is here in North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of alluded to this before, the fact that in North Carolina, while the governor does have a say in vetoing other, bits of legislation and other things that the General Assembly might pass, this isn't one of those things. But are there any potential hiccups or challenges that we might expect to this redistricting that might actually throw a wrench into this actually going through?
So I don't expect anything to happen in this process. I imagine this will be done by the end of the week. This will go quicker because we're not redrawing all the districts. We're just doing Congress, not, more local things. However, I do anticipate there will be some lawsuits after this. We've seen that with the NAACP and other, particularly voting rights groups, but also racial voting rights groups have filed lawsuits prior to this. So I'm going to probably at some point just look through precedent and see what we've seen so far here, but that's a pretty much done deal. Not that A, it's going to go through, and B, litigation is expected. That's probably the best chance that Democrats have to fight something like this, at least here in North Carolina.
Now, I know we're getting kind of adjacent to this topic, but it kind of has been melded in with the whole redistricting dialogue. We've heard it specifically from Governor Stein, the fact that he is, in a lot of his messaging has expressed concern that there's not a budget, but lawmakers are working on this instead. Yeah. Do we know what's going on with the budget?
I asked that question to Representative Lopez. Of course, he, as a Democrat, has less control over just the process in general that Republicans do. But I said, is there any headway that you've heard of in terms of a budget? And he said no. So that is a big problem. Of course, it's not that we're not paying people right now, but that does give us an inability to raise teacher salaries, to raise law enforcement, change how they are funded. And so a lot of the big problems right now in the state, a lot of people, not just representatives, but people would say, could be solved by kind of addressing this budget issue. Right now, until we get any solution on that, that's all just going to be kind of stagnant. What's interesting about North Carolina, and I chatted with Michael Bitzer, he's a Catawba College professor of political science. I asked him, why is North Carolina a state that has such a hard time passing a budget on time? Because this is not the first time we're in this situation. This, of course, is being compounded by we're joining this national push to redraw our maps when we don't have our biggest job done, which is the budget. And he said what's interesting about North Carolina is it's not necessarily Democrats versus Republicans, it's House Republicans versus Senate Republicans. They do have a majority in both chambers right now, but they do not agree on how to spend the money, and that's actually the biggest hiccup right now, which is interesting. So though Republicans do agree, it seems like across the board in the state level on this redistricting plan, there's some disagreement about the budget, and that's part of what's taking so long.
Yeah, that's an interesting call out too, because I feel like I saw that when we were talking about Hurricane Helene relief, how like the disparities in getting the relief out that kind of, I don't want to say slowed the process down, but was just the fact that you couldn't get the two chambers to come to an agreement on that.
Yeah, and it was interesting too that one of the big pieces of the budget discussion is, do we put Helene funding in the budget, or do we just continue to do it only in these relief bills? You'd think, like, off the top of my head, I'd be like, well, why wouldn't we put it in the budget? It's the biggest problem the state is facing kind of across the board right now. But if you put it in a budget, you are tying urgent Helene funding to other stipulations. That is a long document. I do not recommend looking through the budget. It is not fun. But you tie it to everything else in there. And so that's kind of the disagreement, is this might slow down funding even further if we put it in the budget, but then other people are like, well, how can we have a budget without it? So it's very complicated. It's not necessarily just Democrat versus Republican, but it is not something I foresee getting solved anytime soon.
Well, I know you'll follow it closely.
One day,
whatever
we'll come back to the budget.
Here. And all of this, by the way, all this conversation here related to a piece you're working on tonight. So at 11 o'clock, what will you be chatting about? And who will folks be hearing from?
Yeah, we're going to have the sound from Governor Josh Stein from earlier today. And I also had that interview with Representative Lopez. And of course, the statements from the Republican legislators who are kind of leading this push. But I think the big focus tonight is the fact that, what happens now? There isn't much Democrats can do. And so now we're just kind of riding the wave and seeing what happens.
Yeah. All right. Julie Kay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you at 11 for that piece. All right, folks, time for a quick break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. We've got a couple feeds we're seeing here live right now, and we also have an update out of Atlanta, that big story of the day. Live images, by the way, Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. This was the site of a major interception, according to officials in Atlanta, as somebody, they say, was planning to fire shots inside the airport, but that was thwarted. We'll have much more in the coming moments of Live Impact News. See you in 2. Hey everyone, hope you're having a great evening. Vanessa Rufus here inside the Live Impact News studio. We are checking out now some live images from Atlanta, Georgia, specifically Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, where officials gave a briefing about a situation that transpired in this airport this morning. Very wild story. Essentially, they say there was a man who live streamed himself coming down from Cartersville, Georgia, which is kind of a northern suburb of Atlanta, saying that he was planning to shoot up the airport because of, though, they say, see something, say something going right, they were able to thwart that. Let's listen in.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens, and I'm here along with my colleagues to talk about an incident that could have been tragic but was averted. So we're joined here by the COO of this city, our chief of police, as well as Captain Shapiro from Sparacchio from Cartersville Police, as well as our FBI lead, Mr. Brown, as well as our, who else we have back here? Oh, we have Ricky Smith from Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. And we are here to talk about an incident that occurred at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport that was averted today, thankfully. And Chief Shearbon will give you a lot of details about that incident. But in particular, 27 or more lives could have been lost today because an individual came into Hartsfield-Jackson and after being reported coming out of Cartersville, Georgia, that had mental challenges. This individual, thankfully, his family went to the Cartersville police and shared with them what was going on, and they alerted APD, and APD and the airport were aware, and this crisis was averted. But this individual did have a semi-automatic weapon, and this individual was mentally challenged. And when you have those combinations together, it can turn out to be deadly. People that are mentally challenged, and he happened to also have been a felon from a few years back. So he's a felon with a semi-automatic weapon, and he's got mental challenges, and he's approaching the world's busiest and most efficient airport. This crisis, we're thankful to God and to good information and good intel and good people for this crisis being averted. Just a few weeks ago, we dealt with the CDC shooting that occurred in this city, where another individual coming out of Kennesaw had a mental challenge and a high-powered weapon and ended up killing a DeKalb County police officer and striking the CDC, as well as striking fear into the communities around. We also had an individual just last year in Midtown that was also seeking mental help with his parents, but ended up causing loss of life in that regard as well. We also had a Four Seasons hotel and residence, an individual with high-powered weapons and a mental health diagnosis. So what you're seeing is we are experiencing across the nation and even in this great city where guns and mental health challenges going together can propose a deadly scenario. But we're thankful that in this situation today, this crisis was averted. And so now I would turn it over to our police chief, Darren Shearbon, to be able to give you more details about all of the aspects of this situation. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate you all being here. As the mayor stated, we are here today to announce an arrest of an individual that posed a threat to our airport, but also to note that because of the community, in the case the family, as well as the joint collaboration of law enforcement, that a tragedy was indeed averted. The Atlanta airport, the busiest in the world, most efficient, remains safe. Each and every day we have a range of resources in place to keep the airport safe, including our special response team and the many officers that are assigned there. That team trains regularly for scenarios just like today. And I want to thank the men and women of the airport for their response. We have taken in custody and have under arrest a Billy Cagle, age 49, resident of Cartersville, Georgia. At approximately 9:40 this morning, the Atlanta Police Department was alerted by the Cartersville Police Department of a potential threat at the airport. Cartersville Police Department was alerted by the family of Mr. Cagle that he was streaming on social media, that he was headed to the airport, in their words, to shoot it up. And the family stated that he was in possession of an assault rifle. What we didn't know is that Mr. Cagle had already arrived at the airport. In fact, we know that he arrived at 9:29, going to the south terminal. and that he entered the airport shortly thereafter at 9:31. At that time, we do not believe he was armed. He entered the South Domestic Terminal, and from video we will show you he seemed to be very interested in the TSA check-in area, which you can see was heavily crowded with travelers. At approximately 9:54, officers of this department, armed with a photograph of Mr. Cagle and being provided up-to-date information from their sergeant as she spoke to the Cartersville Police Department and a family member, was able to locate Mr. Cagle and take him into custody. He had arrived at the airport in a Chevy flatbed pickup that was part of the lookout provided to us by Cartersville PD. That vehicle was parked immediately outside. When we went to that vehicle, we found inside a Springfield AR-15 assault rifle, a 5.56 St. Victor model with 27 rounds of ammunition. We did have a tragedy averted today. I, just a short while ago, spoke to 2 officers of this department and thanked them, because if it were not for Officer Gibson and Officer Banks, and if it were not for their Sergeant Jones that was providing them, I do believe that Mr. Cagle was headed back to his truck to retrieve it, and I do believe he was likely to use that weapon inside the crowded terminal that he had just seen. We are working closely with the District Attorney of Clayton County, District Attorney Mosley, and we have charged Mr. Cagle with a count of terroristic threats, criminal attempt to commit aggravated assaults, possession of a firearm in the commission of a felony, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. We're here today briefing you on a success and not a tragedy, because a family saw something and said something. A family knew they had a family member in crisis, they knew they had access to firearms, and they were on social media. This is something we've seen across the country time and time again. Social media postings, people with an awareness, individuals with access to a firearm. But today, the family said something. The local police in Cartersville quickly notified the Atlanta Police Department. And the Atlanta Police Department, using its resources at the airport, took the individual into custody. So today is how it should work. Community, law enforcement, dedicated men and women wearing the uniform and trained to respond when their community needs them. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for making sure we have the resources to keep our airport safe and keep our city safe. And thank you to the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department, particularly our airport section, for what you did today. And now I'm going to turn the podium over to our representative from Cartersville, Captain Sparacio, for comments from him. Thank you.
Good morning. So this morning, just after 9:30, we were alerted by family members that Mr. Cagle was en route to somewhere in the Atlanta area. They weren't sure. Ultimately, we found out it was the Atlanta airport, and that he had the intention to inflict harm to as many people as he could. We were able to get in touch with the Atlanta Police Department. Our investigators were able to quickly determine what kind of vehicle he was in, get very recent pictures of that vehicle, and get all those over to the Atlanta Police Department in a timely manner, and ultimately get this, what could have been a crisis, averted. And it's because of the hard work, dedication of the excellent investigators we have, the patrol officers that initially took the report, that they were able to take care of that. We are familiar with Mr. Cagle. He's got a criminal history in Cartersville. But again, no one would ever see anything like this. See something, say something really did work.
Thank you so much, Captain. Thank you to Cartersville Police Department for your excellent cooperation and coordination and timely, quickness in telling us about this particular individual and the harm that he wanted to inflict. Thank you, Chief Schierbaum, and your team here at APD to receive that call, to have great relationships across the region, to be able to continue to stay in great contact with individuals and organizations and other police departments across this region so that they would collaborate with us. Thank you all for this. Those in the community, the family, thank you for sharing. See something, say something did work. And so we are standing here talking about a tragedy averted versus us standing here telling you about 27 plus lives that were lost or injured at the world's busiest airport. So I will now take...
I think there's some video we're going to show at this particular time.
Got it.
May be a benefit for the
media. If you can direct your cameras to the screen, we have a video, and Chief, if you can just come up and kind of take a look at the video and just walk us through it.
Certainly. Again, this comes from the investment that we placed at Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson International Airport. You see the individual arriving, parked his vehicle that was given to us by Cartersville PD, the Chevy flatbed pickup truck. They also had a dog in the vehicle with him. This is occurring at approximately 9:29, and then he will enter the airport itself proper at 9:31.
You'll see him.
He'll be entering the top left. You see him right here in the blue shirt, right here. He will go into the TSA area. He has a high interest in that area, and you'll see the number of travelers that are there that are preparing to depart. Our officers, armed with this photograph, are able to pick him out of that crowded area and are able to take him to custody.
We just have a situation going on. Ready off? Is the guy in the building? You have hands. Put your hand on your left side.
Mr. Cagle's vehicle is just outside these doors. He was clearly moving from the area that he was pitched and scouted and was moving back toward that area. Mr. Cagle was checked out by EMS. They determined he had no injuries, and he would be later be transported to his detention area. And then we're going to have next the weapon that is located inside the vehicle. Thank you, Director Spikes. The officers at this time are handcuffing him. Because of his size, and what you have in the description, they did require to use 2 sets of handcuffs to be able to properly secure him. Fortunately, there were no firearms on him at this time. His weapon is outside in his vehicle.
Chief, what's his size? He's about 6'3".
6'3".
320 pounds.
320 pounds, 6'3". And again, this is Officer Banks and Officer Gibson there. This is the vehicle. Matched the description perfectly given by Cartersville PD. He had pulled up right to the south, a domestic terminal, parked here, would go down and go into another door. And then you'll see the officers approaching it, and then they'll recover the firearm, the semi-automatic assault rifle that he had with him. There were 27 rounds that could have been fired from this weapon inside the airport. And this is exactly why we're here today, to encourage citizens to do their part should they ever become aware, and again acknowledge the family, acknowledge our partners at Cartersville Police Department for their work. Thank you, Captain.
Mayor, at this time we are ready for questions.
All right, at this time we are now ready for questions.
Well, what we will do, we will start over here. We'll start with Taisha, and we will move to my left. Taisha.
So this question may be for Chief Shearbell, I'm not sure, but had he just went into the airport with the gun initially, how difficult would it have been to stop him if he didn't do that, look like a dry run, maybe to see where he was going to go?
I don't want to go into the full capabilities that we have at the airport. We prepare for this very scenario. We tabletop for it. Our special response team trains weekly for just this occurrence. What you didn't see in the video was close by officers armed with rifles themselves. Any of you that travel through our airport commonly see them in the atrium. That's why they're there. You see officers with sidearms that are ready, prepared to move out. So should that scenario ever rise, as it has elsewhere in the city, we're going to be ready for it through training, for proper equipment and capability. We just pray that we're never called upon to do that. This is what a proper response by citizens and by law enforcement should look like.
Chief, do you know how he got the weapon? Was it a weapon that he purchased legally?
The investigation has been ongoing since this morning about 10 o'clock, and so we're still working through that. We are joined today by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, so our federal authorities will be assisting us in determining how we obtained the firearm, which he was not able to legally possess. And that's one of the charges he's been charged with.
Veronica?
Yes. So the family alerted you to what Mr. Cagle possibly had in mind. Did they say why he wanted to do this, some sort of motive? And also, how much ammunition did he have in addition to what was in the weapon?
All right, the investigation will determine if there was a motive. Right now, we've recovered 27 rounds. He had the capability to fire through that weapon.
You said there was a prior felony. What were his prior charges?
We'll have that provided for you at a later time. Right now, I do not have that right in front of me. I do know there was a drug possession arrest that was pretty significant that occurred in Cartersville prior to this.
CBS or ABC?
Yes, Leandra had here with CBS News Atlanta. What mental health challenges was he suffering from?
I'm not going to provide that information. I will say this, mental health care is vital to a good society and preventing violent crime, and that the family was aware that there was a need there, reach out. We will hope the courts will take all that in consideration as they move forward, and I do not want to share that. I think a family was brave to step forward, and I want to commend the bravery of the family for what they've done today.
So in the video that we saw, the guy goes around the Delta area, the South Terminal. Did he actually go towards the TSA area and there, and I guess?
Yes, sir. We have other video of him being in that space.
Has the suspect spoken with investigators, and if so, what is he saying?
Investigation is still ongoing. I cannot release any information that he may have given to our investigators.
All right, we'll start back over. We'll start with you and work our way back down. Another question?
Of course, you guys mentioned about the response time. How fast were it? We saw the officer with the phone, the picture of the guy. How fast were you guys able to identify him and see him in the airport?
Certainly, the timeline is we received the call at 9:40, and we had him in custody at 9:54. And as you can see, that was a very crowded area, and the officers, you can see in their hands, had the photograph. They were scouring the area. This is just one of two officers. We had officers all out the airport looking. And so I do want to commend them and just thank those officers for doing what Atlanta expected them to do on this Monday morning.
CBS Atlanta. Another question? Any other question? No. Veronica?
Yeah. Have you seen this live stream that Cagle was making at the time?
I have not, ma'am.
How did the family know he was going to be jail?
He said he was.
He told them.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, next question, Aisha, and then we'll go to Channel 5.
Chief, what happened when, so we were out there when we weren't quite sure what was happening, and the way the truck was positioned, he had ran over a cone, and then it was like, just a very odd position. What happened from the moment he parked that truck that way until, you all were in that video showing him?
Yeah, so he parks at 9:29. He enters the South Terminal at 9:31. And then he is walking around the area. He goes to the TSA checkpoint area. He is scanning that area, and he's walking back to the truck, we believe, when the officers encounter him. And then that occurs at 9:54.
Because I just know how on it officers are when you park right there, so I was just wondering, did anybody see him park his truck right there? Because it seems like there were 2 minutes where he was able to get lost.
Right. Our priority was to find the person, ma'am, and that's what we did.
All right, Cody, did you have a question? All right, 5.
Well, I know the airport this morning, especially in that TSA, they don't last too long, with the government shutdown. We're getting into holiday travel, there's going to be long lines at the TSA checkpoints. What do you want people to know in these situations to know that as they might be in these backups, that they are safe?
Well, we protect the world's busiest but most efficient airport each and every day through many holidays, sporting events. We ensure the airport has the proper staffing. The mayor gives us the tools to make sure our police department has the equipment they need for a wide range of emergencies. So what we've done in the past, we're going to continue to do. We'll always strive for improvement where we need to. We can scale up the resources at the Atlanta Police Department as necessary. But the key to success, as it was today, is to see something, say something. While we have a number of police officers on this police department, what is out there at a great capacity is law-abiding citizens, citizens that care, and citizens that want to be in a safe place. And if those citizens speak up, whether it's a family member, a friend, a neighbor, and say something is not right here, this is how we save lives as a society. Today is how it is supposed to work.
I think I misheard you, but just to confirm, was there a dog also involved?
There was a dog in that truck. We have got that. Animal has been turned back over to the family and is in good care. Was not harmed at any point today.
Family members there with him?
He traveled there alone. Yes, sir. He traveled there alone.
It wasn't a daughter or family member?
No, we were communicating via phone.
All right, thank you, everyone. If you need updated information, it will be posted on the Atlanta Police Department's website. Just visit the news section.
All right, folks, you were just hearing that earlier briefing from officials in Atlanta, that major incident that they say was averted, a crisis that was averted because essentially see something, say something went right, that mantra that we always hear officials talking about when it comes to speaking up when you see something that's concerning. Apparently, family members of this gentleman ended up calling police, which called the Atlanta Police Department, and then eventually they were able to intercept this person, they say, with an AR-15 on the property of Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. We'll be back in 2 minutes, folks. A quick break here on Live Impact. As we mentioned, a couple feeds we're watching, including a local one here from Statesville City Council. So we'll be back in just a bit, and we'll pop in with whenever one we see with the most activity happening. So we'll see in just a second. Vanessa Roof is back here in the Live Impact News studio. We indeed will move to Statesville City Council. That meeting has been underway for about an hour and a half. Multiple items on the agenda tonight. So let's listen in to see where we are and where things stand with this commentary.
Specific commitment, and that commitment, I mean, would it include not removing any current trees and other foliage within the existing buffer?
Yes, yeah, we'd look to keep all existing trees as possible and then supplement.
That'd be the case around the perimeter of the site, that you would not remove trees that exist now within the 30 in some places and 15 in other places site. Is that how that would work? I mean, we got a report. I mean, I guess it's public information now that the big project at Barium Springs, that they violated the agreed upon buffer. And I think what I'm trying to say is it would be some benefit to say that we're not going to remove these big trees that Ms. Judy was talking about anywhere in the perimeter if they're within the required or the agreed upon buffer. You see what I'm saying? I mean, is that possible?
Yes, sir. That is our objective for the buffer, including at the cul-de-sac that Councilman Johnson was just asking you about.
Is that what you're, I mean?
How do we need to state that as a condition?
Yeah, I think that as a condition, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like the condition would be that within that 30-foot buffer, that no existing foliage will be removed from that, no trees will be removed. Is that what I understand to be what the council wishes and what I understand to be what the developer agrees to?
Right.
Yes.
Is that good with you, Steve?
And this is just within that cul-de-sac region, not along the entire 30-foot buffer.
No, I think they were saying they thought they could do it on the, I mean, whatever the approved buffer is.
For the entire project.
They would keep the existing trees and foliage within that. Isn't that what we're saying? And I mean, there has to be some, there has to be some out. I mean, with our approval, you know, they could change it, but I mean, I'm just asking if that's possible.
What's the buffer around the whole, is it 30 feet around the whole property?
It's 15 feet around the property generally, and then 30 feet along Hillhaven, US 21, and Wallace Springs Road. So there's an additional screening because there was concerns of visibility from the public rights-of-way.
And within that setting, you all said that you would save the trees that are around that area.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just in the cul-de-sac?
So,
Or all over?
Wallace Springs.
okay. Does everybody understand the condition then, and the developers, y'all agree to this condition, clearly on the record?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think in fairness,
it's
it should be,
the
I mean, if there becomes an issue with that, then it should be that, you know, if you come back and get approval of the council to modify it, you could do that. But I mean, otherwise, and I don't know what the penalty, I mean, I don't know what are they going to do in Troutman, Ron? You have any idea where they just went in to clear cut an area that was supposed to be 100-foot buffer or something, and
basically all they can do is put it back, or put trees back that are going to be, you know, much smaller.
I want to be clear. You're going to maintain around the perimeter 30-foot buffer. If in the process,
no,
that's what I just said.
Just Hillhaven Road, Wallace Springs.
Yeah, Hillhaven
21.
And Wallace Springs.
That's where it's 30 feet.
30 feet.
Wallace Springs.
Those 30.
Hillhaven.
And 15 everywhere else.
Okay. All right. In the process of construction, though, should you accidentally damage, you make a commitment that you will restore it to the full 30 foot.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you want to clarify.
And so then we'll need to put this in writing and have everyone sign it officially.
So,
Ron, I think the manager wanted to speak.
Question, especially on the southern side of the property where those are pretty tight. So are you saying that it's an undisturbed, so it's going to stay as it is? Or especially in those areas, would it be disturbed and then replaced?
So that's a question that I'd like to see clarification on as well. I believe we're agreeable 30-foot undisturbed along Wallace Springs Road. It's the question of the remainder of the site and how do we address that, whether it can or cannot be disturbed. Can it be disturbed in coordination with planning staff when we're reviewing technical drawings? If there is a disturbance with grading, that we have to provide a specific detail for planning showing that it is a higher standard than what we would be providing within a 15-foot buffer.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. The other issue, too, is when the TIA that's been talked about is completed as well, it may require, like, for example, left turn lanes, some widening of the roads. We've agreed it's one of the conditions to give up some right-of-way. So there might be some areas where the road has to move out a little bit. So there may be some trees that come down as a result of that, obviously. So we don't, you know, if the TIA says you need to widen here and we have to remove some trees, we don't want to be held accountable in those situations, obviously. So if we could just clarify that. But our objective is to leave all the vegetation and trees, obviously, where we can. Does that make sense?
Yes, it all makes sense, but I mean, I think it's incumbent upon us to get as specific.
Sure.
So let's just go back. I think the manager makes a good point that maybe where there's only 15 feet, it's going to be tough to navigate within there, but in the 30, not so much. So could we start by saying that on Wallace Springs, Hillhaven, and 21, where there are 30-foot buffers, unless there's obviously if the TIA says put in a left turn lane,
right,
whatever, you got to do that. But subject to the TIA requiring something else, could you definitely do it without on the areas that are 30 feet? Not disturb the existing tree cover and foliage in those areas.
We have a better chance of maintaining that foliage. Yes, sir.
I don't want a better chance. I want to.
Yes. If we need to commit to something, correct. The 30 foot.
Then okay. So the 30's covered. Leah, you got that? 30 cover. 30 foot is undisturbed unless the TIA requires some otherwise.
Right.
About the 15 foot. What can we say there and be happy with? Now, can we say 15 feet would be undisturbed unless you get council approval, which will not be unreasonably withheld?
That would be fine. that would be fine. And obviously, too, there's.
Kind of our lawyer coverall, is it?
Yes.
So then we just say you're being unreasonable, you say we're being unreasonable, and we decide on, or that, not, it won't be me, it'll be, as Mr. Sin pointed out.
Again, that's our objective. There are 6 different entrance points too, obviously. So where those entrance points will be, obviously we'll be cutting paths and trees in those particular areas. I think that goes without saying, but again, just to clarify.
That helpful, Steve?
I'm satisfied if Mr. Jones would include that.
Yes, I'll make that amendment.
Kind of like a 10th condition, I guess.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay there, because there may be more. So we've got a motion and a second, right?
Yes.
And we're in discussion. Is there any further discussion? Been an indication there's a division, so I guess I'll ask all in favor of approving first reading, raise your hand. Those opposed? Passes 5-3.
All right, folks, we are, of course, dipping in there for just a bit with that Statesville City Council meeting. There were other items discussed this evening, so we hope to bring those to you if we're able to. Some of them are of interest, I think, for folks based on some of the headlines we've seen about development, not just in Statesville, but other municipalities around the Charlotte area with proposed data centers. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. We've got a couple feeds we continue to watch as well, so we may rejoin with one that we were seeing in the last several moments involving the Ukrainian ambassador, of course, as we're seeing resurfacing of push to try to end the Ukraine war in the headlines. So stay with us here on Live Impact. We'll be back in 2, and we will dip in with one of these feeds when we return. All right, folks, back here in the Live Impact News studio, we will move to D.C. now for our next feed. We're getting live images right now as there's a forum underway in Washington, D.C. at one of the hotels there. You have, you're about to see here, the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States speaking. This is Olga Stefanishina. And of course, this is coming as we are starting to see more of a resurgence in the push to end the Ukrainian war. And so with that, let's go ahead and listen in. We'll pop back in with anything big and breaking, of course.
So I think it's far from the end, but it's definitely a beginning of something serious.
We only have time for one more question, unfortunately. Yes, please. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Hi, Ambassador Jennifer Hanser with CNN. Good to see you. I was wondering if the President Trump laid out any red lines for Russia or Ukraine in that meeting, and did he commit to not negotiate for territorial changes without Ukraine in the room?
Wow. What do I say for this?
Say the truth.
Next question.
Nice question. Yeah, good. Thank you. Well, I think, again, coming back to my previous answer, so everybody, they were like the room full of smart people. So, and it would be absolutely naive to try to agree on something for 100% just ahead, of the discussion to take place. I think, just on Monday last week, we started from the very fact that Russia is now ready to negotiate. They are far from, even sitting over the table and, speaking about the ending the war, because the war is the blood which keeps the Russia alive. And here what we're talking about is the meeting that will take place between two presidents, President of the United States and President of Russia in Budapest, potentially. I think it's 2 weeks' time. Things can change so much, Many things change between the New York meeting and the Washington meeting. It's also 2 weeks' time. So things could really change in 2 weeks. But I think going through this way from Monday to last Friday, just coming back to the topic that there will be a dialogue is also something that is really important for the United States, I think. So Ukraine, unfortunately, is still at war. We stand where we stand, So, I think everybody have learned a lot from meeting in Alaska and from the follow-up meeting in Washington, which took place. And I don't think that anybody should consider there's somebody naive around the table. And I believe that as Ukraine, we have to invest in every effort. And I think it's worth a lot to hear from my president about, making a stop on the line where it is. I think it's a huge step from Ukrainian side. So I think this is something that evolved from this meeting, but I don't think that there's been something more than of all the things you've numbered in your question.
So I think on this kind of cautiously optimistic note, we'll end the program. Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you so much for your questions.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Folks, there you have in D.C. the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States hosting this forum, just wrapped up. As we mentioned, this comes as we are starting to see more of a push kind of resurging from Ukrainian leaders to try to end the war in Ukraine. Even most recently here, you probably saw it on our newscast this evening, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that he would be open to taking part in some sort of summit with the United States and Russian President Vladimir Putin, if it were to happen, in Budapest. So we'll have much more on that topic to come. In the meantime, I think let's take a quick break here. We'll be back in 2 minutes, and we'll try to get to the very latest we mentioned at some point this evening on the Statesville City Council dialogue as it pertains to a data center, which was on the agenda this evening. And with that, we'll take that break. We'll see you soon. All right, folks, welcome back to Live Impact News. We are going to turn to honoring from earlier today. This was a ceremony that happened at the White House as the president honored a couple of teams from Louisiana. So you have the NCAA baseball champs, LSU, and the NAIA champs, LSU Shreveport. They had a joint White House celebration today, marking their seasons. And of note, LSU Tigers did sweep Coastal Carolina in the College World Series. Let's go ahead and take a look at that earlier ceremony.
Great. Two pretty good coaches, right? Absolutely. I'd say so. A lot of good coaches up here. Well, I want to thank you. It's a special place to me, a special state. As you know, we won it by, 36 points or some ridiculous numbers like that. And so when I was asked to do this, I said, this is my honor. Please sit down. We'll have a little fun, okay? Thank you all very much. Great group of people. This place is crowded. You got a lot of fans. Who do you think is going to make it into the major leagues? Raise your hand if you think that. I guarantee a lot of them when you hear about their records and their conquests. I want to just begin by saying that we're joined today two collegiate championship baseball teams from the great state of Louisiana, two teams that were absolutely the top. Both of these teams brought incredible pride and grit and glory to their schools, for the state, and today they're bringing that same Louisiana spirit to a place called the White House. Has anyone heard of it, huh? You know, we're building right behind us, we're building a ballroom. They've wanted a ballroom for 150 years. And I'm giving that honor to this wonderful place. I think we should do it. This was the ballroom, and this room holds 88 people, and the new one will hold 999 people, which is a difference. I say 999 because I didn't want to crack 1,000. I didn't want people to get concerned because that's getting big. But we're going to have we'll have the most beautiful ballroom in the country. It's going up, and for those that are interested, we got to get back to baseball, but you see the gold drapes? That's a knockout panel. We knock it in, you go, that comes out, and then you have essentially glass and exactly in the decor of the White House. I didn't know I'd be standing here right now, because right on the other side, you have a lot of construction going on, which you might hear periodically, but that's a knockout panel, and that goes right into the ballroom, and the ballroom's going to be beautiful. So you'll have drinks, cocktails, everything on this floor. And then they'll say, welcome to dinner. You walk into the ballroom, Mr. Senators, and you're going to see a ballroom the likes of which I don't think it'll be topped. It'll be the finest. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I just started. And it just started today, so that's good luck. We want the same luck that they had and the same talent. But I'm thrilled to welcome the 2025 NCAA College World Series champions. That's pretty good. The Louisiana State University Tigers. So where are you guys? Great. And of course, we have the 2025 NAIA Baseball National Champions, the LSU Shreveport Pilots. So those two teams, you'll hear about them in a second. And I want to thank the Tigers head coach, Jay Johnson, who I just met. These are great coaches, who led the team to its second championship win in just 3 years, and also is the LSU Shreveport head coach, Brad Neffendorf, who is the College Baseball Foundation's 2025 Coach of the Year. Not bad. I think we should bring them into government. Yeah. They don't need the baseball. We could bring them into government. We could definitely use it. We're also honored to be joined by the incredible duo from Louisiana, Speaker Mike Johnson. As you know, Mike is phenomenal. The job he's doing is phenomenal. And House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, a very brave man, very brave man. Hey, Steve. Hi, Steve. Two great guys. You know, Steve is very brave, though. He was badly hurt, and they put him at second base. Did you ever hear of Bobby Richardson? He had great depth. He had great range. He could go all over. He was with the Yankees for many years, and I don't know, he came from around your area, I think, Bobby Richardson, a second baseman for the Yankees for many years. So he was known for unbelievable. He'd feel balls at shortstop when they were hit. He was great. And when Steve was so badly injured, you know about that. Nobody ever really suffered like that. We thought he was a goner. Actually, I went to the hospital that night. But he came back, and a few months later, he's standing at second base, and he was having a hard time moving. I wouldn't say he had Bobby Richardson's range. Do you agree with that? And he was having a little bit of a hard time. He was coming out. This was really a very bad experience for him. So he's standing in the stadium over here, the Washington Stadium, and a ball is smashed to him. The first pitch of the game, he's at second base, and he wasn't looking to be a hero. And he dropped to his knees, and he stopped it, and that was a hard hit. This happened from God. The first pitch of the game, it's ripped. You know what I'm talking about, Mr. Governor. The ball is ripped to him, hard ground ball. He falls to his knees, he blocks it, he grabs it, he throws it to first. They got him out. Nobody could believe it. Nobody could believe it. And they immediately took him out of the game because there was going to be no way, right? There was no way you were going to top it. It could only go down from there, right, Steve? And I said, this is amazing, but it was really something. We're also pleased to be joined by two wonderful people, senators, your senators, Bill Cassidy and John Kennedy. Thank you both for being here. Appreciate it very much. Very, very much. A lot of good political people in that state. It's been known for politics, I think. I would say politics, baseball, and football, a little bit of football too, right? Representative Julia Letlow. Julia? Hi, Julia. How are you? Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, who we had a lot of luck with, right? You won that campaign. It was beautiful. And his wife, Sharon. Thank you very much. Hi, Sharon. Nice to see you, Sharon. And all of the other Louisiana fans and politicians. You have so many political leaders. I want to just thank you all for being here. It's a great tribute to this team, to these two great teams. Very rare that you have two teams in one room. You might have them, but they're not from the same state. What is it with baseball? What is that, Coach? What do you figure that is? Just has it, right? Pretty good. I tell you, it's pretty amazing. Two amazing seasons, two incredible teams to celebrate. So let's start with the Tigers, okay? Throughout their 2025 season, the LSU Tigers delivered some of the most electrifying moments in the history of college baseball and ended with a phenomenal record of 53 wins and just 15 losses. That's pretty good. I'd like to have that in the major leagues. You finished the year with an 8-game win streak and a 2-game series sweep against Coastal Carolina in the College World Series Finals to take the title. That's the 8th national baseball title in LSU history. That's amazing, actually. That's really great. Now, LSU's pitching staff was the best in the conference, leading the nation with 760 strikeouts. Cade Anderson was ranked college baseball's #1 player on the mound. I would like to represent him. I'm leaving the White House immediately. Oh, the money. Oh, somebody's going to make some. Where's Cade? Where is Cade? Where are you, Cade? Come here, Cade. Boy, oh boy, would I like to be doing that, huh? 180 strikeouts, that's a lot. That's almost a record. In Game 1 of the championships, he pitched a complete game shutout, preventing Coastal Carolina from scoring, even though they had one of the best offensive teams in all of baseball. Even a single run they couldn't get, so it's no wonder he was named the College World Series Most Outstanding Player. Cade, thank you very much, Cade, and it's great to have you at the White House. We like winners at the White House, Cade. To advance to the regional championship, LSU faced Dallas Baptist, supposed to be a great team, an outfielder, Chris Stanfield was, they say, unstoppable. He built an early game momentum with a second-inning home run, contributed multiple RBIs, and brought in an additional run with a sacrifice ground out at the end of the game. And you ended up winning the game, so I think your last sacrifice didn't matter too much because they won the game 12-0. That's not too bad. Where are you? Where are you? Well, look at this guy, huh? Is he that good a player? Is he good? Pretty good, huh? Oh, that's a good team. So to advance to the regional championship, LSU, and if you look at it, LSU has turned out to be named one of the best teams over the last 10 years, according to the experts, of which there are many, but most of them can't play very well, right? Back in Baton Rouge, you had a tense Game 1 on the Super Regional West against West Virginia with a full court in a fifth inning, a full count. In the fifth inning, the bases were loaded, and sophomore shortstop Stephen Milam launched the ball deep over right center field, securing a grand slam and adding 4 runs to the numbers already up substantially. West Virginia began to mount a comeback in the 6th, but Josh Pearson smashed another grand slam over the wall, carrying the Tigers to victory. So, Josh, where are you? And where, let's see, Malum, where is Malum? Guys have very strong hands, I'm noticing, you know. They're ripping my hand up. These are strong people. You don't hit those home runs without strong, beautiful hands. You agree with that, Mr. Speaker? How was your baseball? Okay, not bad. Not quite as good. First baseman Jared Jones had one of the most iconic outings of the season during the June 14th, my birthday, College World Series. Thank you very much. Thank you. Flag Day. That was Flag Day. You know that, right? Against the Arkansas Razorbacks. After knocking a home run out of the park earlier in the game, Jared walked up to the plate in the bottom of the 9th with 2 outs, and the score was tied, and they looked like he could be in trouble. And a runner was in second with a 2-1 count. He hit a line drive up the middle, giving the Tigers enough time to rack up a 6th run, sending them straight to the finals, and the rest is history. You know what happened. 10 players of this elite squad are now headed to even greater glory in the Major League Baseball. I think you're going to do all right. I would like to represent every single one. No, I mean, the team must be incredible. Cade Anderson was drafted by the Seattle Mariners, so I think, aren't they playing a big game tonight or something like that? Are you going to be watching that? Cade, I think so. You better be watching. I'm so busy I don't get to watch baseball too much. I did watch the other night, however. I turned on, and there happened to be a Japanese player who was not bad. He was one of the best pitchers I've ever seen, one of the best hitters I've ever seen, and that all makes for a nice contract. He's pretty good, right? Pretty amazing when you think. They say one of the best games ever played because you had pitching and hitting at this with the same guy. Pretty exciting. Chase Shores was drafted by the Los Angeles Angels. Where's Chase? Where's Chase? Good. Wow, nice big tall guy. Very good. Good. Anthony Ianson and Jacob Mayers were drafted by the Boston Red Sox. Boy, you have good. Where is Anthony? Is Anthony here? Anthony right here? Good luck, huh? Good team. Good team. And Ethan Frey was drafted by the Houston Astros. Another good team. They win a lot, right? Where is he? Where is that guy, huh? Good luck, huh? You feel confident? Good. Daniel Dickerson were drafted by the Milwaukee Brewers. Where's Daniel? Congratulations. Good luck, huh? Great. Jared Jones was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Jared, congratulations. And Cade Woods, who's not present, who wanted to be here so badly, had a problem, was drafted by the Atlanta Braves. That's fantastic. I mean, that's a lot of talent. By the way, we have somebody here who was drafted in another sport, number 1 at everything. He was never drafted number 2 or 3. The great Herschel Walker is here, I understand. Where's Herschel? Where's Herschel? Come here, come here, come here. Come here, Herschel. I'm not sure that LSU loves this guy, but they do respect him. There's nobody like, come here. You want to say a couple of words about baseball players? Go ahead.
Hello, man. How you doing?
I saw him sitting out there. I said, come on, Herschel.
You know, I absolutely love this president, but I didn't ask him to put me on the spot. But anyway, I just want to just tell the players, continue to have that determination that you had in baseball carried throughout your life. So things may get tough, but remember, you can always get up no matter whatever happens, gets up, and continue to fight, fight, fight. All right?
So Connor, we're thanks, Herschel. What a player he was, huh? Oh boy, couldn't stop him. He'd go around you, but if he couldn't go around you, he'd go right through you, and he'd carry 4 guys on his back for as much as he needed. Nobody better. I think maybe the best in history in college, and he had a great career in the NFL too, and he's a great person. And now he's going to be the ambassador. Come on, name the country, Herschel. He's going to be in the tough job. That's a tough job, right? We'd like to have that job a little bit. We're leaving tonight. Connor Ware was drafted by the New York Mets. Connor, where are you, Connor? Boy, that's a hell of a team. And Luis Hernandez will be joining the Minnesota Twins organization. So I just want to congratulate Luis. Where are you, Luis? Congratulations. I've never seen a team with so many people being drafted into the major leagues. It cannot be a bad team. In fact, I think your record should have been better. That's a hell of a record. So we also have a second amazing team with a big win to celebrate today, the LSU Shreveport Pilots. This year, the Pilots became the first and only college baseball team in history to go a full season totally undefeated. You have... That's not bad. Well, I want these two teams to play. You want to do it? I'll do it. We'll get the stadium. I'll pay for it. What the hell? But you had an astounding record of 59 wins and no losses. What the hell is with that? It's in baseball, you know, normally you have like a little bad luck, you lose a game or two. That's pretty good. What do you have to say that he did a good job? Pretty darn good. He did a good job. Congratulations. You two great coaches, two great people, too. You also became the first team in the history of LSU Shreveport to bring home a national title. Head coach Brad Neffendorf deserves a special recognition. The Pilots have been in every NAIA national tournament over the past 2 decades. That's pretty amazing, but they never brought home the title until Brad came along. And so Coach of the Year and all of that stuff, these two coaches are unbelievable, the top of the line. And I'll be honest, you know, I watch Major League Baseball and other sports, and they keep hiring the same coaches over and over again, right? They get fired, then they hire them again. I'd hire these two guys, but I don't want to take them away from your school, so I'm only kidding. Just pretend. I'll end up, you'll all leave, say, that was terrible. You know, they'll both be hired. I'll tell you what, they do a great job, too. During the Red River Athletic Conference Awards, 14 members of the Pilots team received all conference team honors, and 6 players were selected Gold Glove team for excellent defense. I can imagine Isaac Rodey was named Conference Pitcher of the Year for a crushing league with, think of this, a 12-0 record and 114 strikeouts. How about that? 12-0 is not bad. And Kobe Reeves, a left-handed pitcher, was honored as the conference's newcomer of the year. So where are you two guys? Whoops, you're over here, right? That's a fantastic thing. This team fought hard all the way through the last game of the season, the NAIA National Championship against Southeastern University, which supposedly is a great opponent, and your, frankly, opponents quickly took the lead in the first 2 innings, but you refused to fold or quit or do the thing that we're used to seeing a lot of people do in Washington. They quit, they fold. We don't fold, do we, huh? We don't fold. Jose Saloren, who is supposed to be a terrific prospect for the future, drove in 2, and Anthony Swenda scored on a wild pitch. In the next inning, the game was tied. Where's Anthony? Is he here? Anthony, good going. Come here, Anthony. Get over here.
All right, folks, so just a little bit of that White House ceremony as the president there earlier today honored LSU and LSU Shreveport champion baseball teams. Let's take a quick break, folks. In about 2 minutes, we'll be back with, we mentioned, that data center dialogue that took place at Statesville City Council's meeting tonight. And we also have some government shutdown updates to talk about. We'll see you in 2. All right, folks, welcome back to Live Impact News. As we mentioned earlier in the last hour, we've been following Statesville City Council's meeting, and there was a dialogue earlier this evening regarding that proposed data center for Stamey Farm Road. We do want to bring you back to that portion of the City Council meeting, and with that, we will take you there. Keeping in mind we have government update on the shutdown after the Statesville Council meeting.
All right, so next up we have case number 2508, which is the data center. And so this annexation request is filed by Compass Data Centers on behalf of the property owner. It's approximately 350 acres, and it's located at the intersection of Stamey Farm Road and Hickory Highway. So this rezoning was approved back in September at the City Council meeting, contingent upon annexation. Current tax value is $1.12 million, and value with improvements, we're looking at right around $100 million. So here is a site photo from Stamey Farm Road. City of Statesville can provide sewer and water to this site, and Duke Energy would be the electric provider. Here is a zoomed-in version of the concept plan from the rezoning. And for the staff recommendation, it has been the policy of the city to annex properties that are in close proximity to existing city services. This is within Tier 2 of the growth area of the LDP. It's also in the I-40 airport focus area, and therefore staff does recommend passing this first reading.
Questions before I conduct the public hearing? If not, I'll open the public hearing and ask if there are any speakers. I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion regarding first reading.
So moved.
Second. Motion and second to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Or any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Back to number 10 now, sir.
I'm waiting for it. So the computer crashed right before the meeting, and so I thought it was on here.
All right, so folks, once again, that was just a snippet of the latest discussion over that proposed data center for Stamy Farm Road. We've covered this at length here on Live Impact News, including some pretty contentious public hearings where folks from the community came to speak against this measure. We also saw folks speaking in favor of it. So what essentially we saw today was moving forward with the process to annex a specific parcel for this data center to take place. So if you want to catch up kind of on the latest with this development, you can go to our website, WCNC.com, or to our mobile app, WCNC Charlotte mobile app, and find our body of reporting on this topic. So we mentioned we did have an update on the ongoing government shutdown. If you've been following along with the timeline, we're now in day 20. And we mentioned in our afternoon hours of Live Impact that we were expecting a little bit of movement, or really just at the very least discussion within Congress today, specifically the Senate as it had reconvened. And we unfortunately did not see that measure that would temporarily fund the government passed, and it was the 11th failed attempt to pass this. So with that, as we take this live look at the Capitol, we are expecting that dialogue about getting the government up and running to continue. Of note, the House, since the House has already passed this funding measure, is expected to remain away from D.C. for this week. And we're largely seeing the Senate kind of shouldering the responsibility to reopen the government at this point. However, we did see that House Speaker Mike Johnson said that he would bring the House back to talk about matters if the Senate ended up voting on a separate measure to pay federal workers and members of the military with a different bill, which Senate Majority Leader John Thune was expected to bring up this week. So on that note, lots of impacts continue here tonight, including we're seeing to our nation's nuclear stockpile. And just a couple of hours ago, we heard from Energy Secretary Chris Wright speaking on the furloughing of a large share of the staffers who work with the nation's nuclear stockpile, leaving really just a small portion of that staff remaining to oversee the job. And these folks are considered to be mission critical, and that's why they're remaining. So with that, we want to get you an update on those efforts and how this ongoing shutdown is expected to impact the National Nuclear Security Administration.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. It's great to be here in the wonderful state of Nevada that has been key to our national nuclear security since the start of our nuclear program and all the way through today. Unfortunately, I'm here in far less than ideal circumstances. Unfortunately, we were forced today to furlough federal employees, virtually all of our federal employees that work at this office here. The majority of the work are contractors in our efforts in Nevada. Over 3,000 workers are at our site, the Nevada Nuclear Security sites north of here, where we'll be headed next. We worked within the Trump administration, across the administration, in the DOE and OMB, to find creative ways to keep funding, to keep our contractors employed, at least through the end of the month. This is critical for two reasons. Number one, this is thousands of families that are working hard, patriots, to support our country and build the systems that are critical to protect the sovereignty of our nation. We want to keep those families employed and keep the stress level as low as possible. Number two, it is our national security. These are jobs of great gravity. We need to maintain our nuclear stockpile, have our adversaries confident that we have our stuff together, we have a secure and ready to deploy at a moment's notice stockpile. Testing, when we developed our stockpile, underground testings of nuclear devices were conducted here in Nevada. Fortunately, we stopped that over 30 years ago, and we have gone to a more high-tech simulation and small-scale but non-nuclear explosions to research and maintain our stockpile. This work is critical. The humans working on it are critical. We need to open the federal government as quickly as we can to assure we don't overly impact the lives of thousands and soon tens of thousands of employees who are critical to our security. And we need to take our national security seriously. The Republican bill is a clean spending bill. It just continues the spending levels exactly as they were before. This is a Biden budget that has been continued on through continuing resolutions to today. Fortunately, we've had bipartisan votes and majority votes in both the House and the Senate to keep our government open, including one of the great senators here in Nevada, Senator Cortez Masto. I thank her for her courage and for standing with our workers here in Nevada and with our country's national security. The other Nevada Senator, Rosen, has also been a stalwart supporter of the Nevada nuclear security sites and the workers here. And her last vote, she abstained. I think she wants to vote with us. I think she's going to be part of reopening the government. If you can call or reach out to her, that would be helpful. We want to get the government open as soon as we can. We want to keep all the families employed, and we want to keep on top of the critical work to not only maintain our existing nuclear stockpile, but push forward our efforts to modernize and advance that. I thank everyone for being here, and I'll take any questions you have.
All right, if you have a question, just raise your hand and state your name and outlet.
Ricardo with the Las Vegas Review Journal. Can you break down how many employees were furloughed? Was it clear 3,000 total, but how many employees here?
So unfortunately, we have run out of federal funds for federal workers. So here it's 68 employees were furloughed today, but all of the federal workers that we have here. Across the National Nuclear Security Administration, we've had to furlough 1,400 employees across the country. This has never happened before. The NNSA, our umbrella organization, it's been grouped together for 25 years. We've never furloughed workers in the NNSA. This should not happen. But this was as long as we could stretch the funding for the federal workers. We were able to do some gymnastics and stretch it further for the contractors.
Yes.
So the ultimate guarantor of the United States sovereignty is our nuclear arsenal. The work in Nevada was critical in designing and developing those weapons, and today we need to maintain them. We need to make sure they're all in ready working order. We need to understand when it's time to rotate out and replace weapons.
All right, folks, a hiccup with that clip there, but kind of the big takeaway here, you heard Energy Secretary Chris Wright speaking on the fact that this national nuclear security stockpile has never had to furlough workers before, and this is going back to its creation in 2000. Right now, because of the shutdown, the furlough set to impact 1,400 employees. Fewer than 400 employees will remain. These are considered to be mission critical workers, and you heard him kind of trying to assure folks that the stockpile would remain secure, but he did express grievances here that he felt like this shutdown should have never impacted them. They kind of did all sorts of gymnastics, in his words, as far as funding is concerned, to keep all these workers going as long as possible. But now, of course, we're in day 20 of this shutdown, getting pretty close to getting to the record for longest shutdown, which is 35 days. Let's go ahead and take a quick break, folks. We'll be back in about 2 minutes with the very latest of your headlines. All right, folks, thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. We want to turn our attention now as we've got a very timely topic that we are following. Of course, that is fall foliage. We actually have some live images to share with you on one of our sources here showing the Asheville area. And, you know, obviously up in that area, you've got some foliage that's starting to peak. Although here in the Piedmont, you know, if you're driving around town in Charlotte, you probably noticed some color changing with the leaves. So our weather impact team recently discussed not just the fall foliage and kind of what we're seeing, but also kind of in a separate topic. Interesting, though, folks' recollections and kind of high-ranking hurricanes in their minds. So it is interesting to see which weather events are kind of sticking with folks after all these years. So here is our weather impact team speaking with Peter Forrester with Explore Fall.
Welcome back on Live Weather Impact. Chief Meteorologist Tim Buckley here from WFMY in Greensboro, joined by Brittany Van Voorhees at WCNC in Charlotte. And today we have a special guest. Peter Forrester is joining us. Peter is a storm chaser, a weather enthusiast, a fall color enthusiast, and a photographer extraordinaire. Peter, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
So we have a couple things we want to talk to you about today, Peter. I know we'll get to fall color at some point along the line. I know you work a lot with the guys over at Explore Fall, which is a great resource for folks to kind of see where the fall colors are happening and where they might want to go check everything out. But you've been working on a kind of an interesting project that we noticed on your social media pages, which is asking folks around the Southeast, what's the worst hurricane that you remember? Can you tell us a little bit about this project?
Yeah, this was a fun project that I initially started from seeing a map that was along the same lines from a graphic artist. And it was based off of purely meteorological data. And it was, I want to say, made in 2010, so it missed, you know, the last decade and a half of really big storms that have come through the eastern U.S. And so I just put out a call for help on X, on my X account, and just started logging the counties where people said that, hey, this storm in my county in this year was the worst one that I remember, or the worst one that my parents remember. The idea was to do within about a generation. And so from these reports collected from social media, I started filling out this map of just individual counties across the United States, and was able to fill in these swaths of what people remember as the worst storm in their own region. It's really interesting to see patterns in South and North Carolina stand out. Obviously, Helene, which is that orange color on the far left, made a big impact last year. And a lot of people are saying that's the worst, understandably so. But also Hugo, from many years ago, that stands out a lot to a lot of people. Fran, Floyd, Florence, a lot of F storms. And so this is not a data map in that it's accurate scientific data. It's more of just a social experiment and a subjective map to see what people remember.
Yeah, Peter, this is really cool. Social science is always very near and dear to my heart. I actually did my master's research on why people do and don't evacuate for hurricanes, so this is really interesting. I love also seeing all the different storm names because we know H's, like you mentioned, and F's are really, really big here. Have you been surprised by any of the responses that you've received? Because there is one name, and I'll wait till after you answer, but that does pop off on this list that does surprise me a little bit.
There were individual counties that surprised me, I think, and a few in the far northeast, which aren't on that graphic. But really, the Carolinas, I think it made a lot of sense to me. There's a more zoomed out view, but yeah, just a large combination of storms. There's Hurricane Angie's, which is a little bit further north. A lot of people remember that in New England and Northern Virginia. And then in the south, basically south of the North Carolina border, it becomes a jumbled mess of all these different storms going into Florida, going into the coastlines, etc. I would say maybe Opal, which I don't think had many direct North Carolina impacts, but that went on a swath up from Florida into the Atlanta metro. And that was actually pretty surprising to me because in my own consciousness, I don't remember too much conversation about that storm.
Yeah, the only one that surprised me, I was going to say, was Dorian, just because the storm stayed offshore and it was so annoying because it was offshore for so long. But I would think those areas in North Carolina on the eastern side would have had another storm that they would have thought was more intense. But I guess you can't argue with what people remember.
Yeah, I had a couple of people from Dare County, which is Hatteras, south side of the Outer Banks, say that it was Dorian. I guess because of the surge impacts, because it was such a powerful Category 5 storm, it brought a lot of surge with it, even though it was mostly offshore, and that wind field really smoked Hatteras. So I expect that's why it stands out. Also, another one, Irene, just north of there in the Outer Banks. I always thought of Irene as this big New England storm that had catastrophic flooding in Vermont. But a lot of people said that because of the inland flooding on the inland side of the Sound from Irene, that actually stood out more to locals as opposed to something like Isabel, which would have impacted the more touristy side of the Outer Banks.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also when you have so many storms, you know.
Yeah, like you were saying, Brittany, they have so many storms out there. They're so vulnerable to both ocean flooding and sound side flooding that there can be so many impacts. But I think for most of our viewers watching maybe in the Charlotte area or the Triad area around here, I think this map makes a lot of sense. Hugo, Helene, Fran. There are a couple counties that I found interesting, though, that actually picked out Michael, which Hurricane Michael is the Cat 5 that went into the Florida Panhandle. But Michael had a really interesting history around here. In 2018, when it ran right up, it was in October, by the way, it produced what we also call a sting jet, which is just kind of a localized area of 70 to 80 mile per hour gusts that knocked out in our region up here about 200,000 to 300,000 folks without power. So it was a different kind of a storm. It wasn't even purely tropical at that point, but it's interesting. You know, I think it's nice that you have this social aspect now, and you would probably say this is a living map. So it would be good if maybe we could help you kind of get this out to more folks and you can get more responses to kind of crowdsource it, because some of the blank counties could be filled in.
Absolutely. And I've changed a couple of these counties back and forth, especially on the fringes of the major storms. It's a subjective map. This isn't like some law that we're laying down. But yeah, the more feedback we can get, the better. And it's a super fun project.
Well, obviously on top of hurricanes, you also love fall. Fall color photography, explore fall, working with them. You're a fall weather fanatic. Tell us a little bit more about your work there and how you got into that.
So, that's a lot of questions.
Take your time.
I would say that my love of fall definitely started with just the photography side of things. I actually picked up photography because of the meteorology. I fell in love with storms and lightning and blizzards and that kind of thing. But then that grew into this love of everything natural, everything outdoors, and wanting to capture that. And so for several years, I had actually been talking with Evan Fisher about this idea of this project that will bring together both meteorology and forecasting the fall and what that looks like. And it was a big question mark, but Evan Fisher was the brains behind the code and the model and a lot of the website stuff and putting all that together. But it's really fun to work alongside him and develop Explore Fall, which is our website that tracks the progression of fall colors across the country, and also bringing in the social side of things. I've been able to put together a system that brings in reports from all over the country and the places where the fall colors are changing and how quickly they're changing, what the quality of those colors are, and bring them into this map, this product that we can share with people like TV stations or just someone who's looking for a guide of, what their house is going to be like in October. And so because of the meteorology, the model, all the hard work we put into that, but also the flexibility to be able to pull in those social reports, we think that this is a really unique product in terms of the tourism market and helping people in the fall. And so it's been a ton of fun to work on. This year for Explore Fall has just been so much fun to interact with all the people and watch the fall colors change. I will say that it's been a tough year for most of the East Coast. Most places east of the Mississippi River have been in pretty severe drought. And North Carolina is a haven. Actually, the quality of the colors in North Carolina have been really great over the past couple of weeks. So actually, your neck of the woods is where to be this year in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we had a professor from App State last week that I spoke to. His name is Dr. Howard Neufeld, and I know you guys had him on WCNC Plus and WFMY Plus. But yeah, he said the drought conditions were impacting a little bit. Like you could tell maybe some leaves were falling off, but there were so many great colors around that you almost didn't notice because it wasn't like a significant drop. So he said you might see some leaves on the ground, but other than that, the drought hasn't impacted too much, which was great to hear because I'm going leaf peeping this week. So. And I'm really excited.
Now's the time to do it. Peter, you're based up in Virginia, right? How are things looking up there this year for fall? And if people are going out, just amateur photographers like myself, do you have any tips for taking the best fall pictures?
Sure. So I'm currently based in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is right on the edge of the Blue Ridge Mountains here. So it's actually looking to be a pretty good year in the Blue Ridge, which is awesome, all the way up and down from Georgia into North Carolina, Tennessee, and then into Virginia. The Blue Ridge is where to be for the fall colors this year. I will say that further west and north of where I am, it's been a very bad year. West Virginia especially usually has vibrant, bright red maples and this wonderful hardwood forest. And unfortunately, it got put into severe or extreme drought in the last month or so. And so basically the leaves just turned brown and fell off. So fortunately, the Blue Ridge has better luck this year. And so going out to take fall photos, I would say that actually the bad forecast days, the days that are going to be a little bit rainy and a little bit cloudy, those are actually the days that you want to be out taking photos. I know that it's super nice to be out hiking out in the mountains when it's a blue sky and a crisp breeze, but actually that makes it much harder for photography. And so if you can get that nice overcast with a little bit of moisture on the leaves to make the colors pop, soft light so it won't be super harsh in the camera, that's actually how you're going to get the best fall photos. So watch the forecast and be okay with going on the days that it's going to be a little bit rainy, and you'll be in awesome shape, especially in North Carolina this year.
Cough, cough, Sunday. Cough, cough,
Exactly.
Sunday.
Of course, you might be blowing off the mountain this Sunday when we have that cold front swinging by with 50-mile-per-hour gusts up that way. But if you hang
your
on to
pictures will
something,
be
you can
good.
get a good picture. Peter, we really appreciate your time sharing everything you had about the hurricane map and also the fall colors. And we hope the colors turn a little bit better up your way in Charlottesville for this season.
Appreciate y'all having me on. It's great. And good luck with your trips this upcoming weekend.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, folks, and with that, we're going to take another quick break here on Live Impact. In 2 minutes, we will return with the very latest on that Ukrainian ambassador sit-down that happened just a couple of hours ago in the D.C. area. We're able to bring you the very tail end, but really not a lot about the dialogue, so we're going to see if we can get you a fuller chunk of that sit-down with folks in D.C. So we'll see you in 2 minutes. Vanessa Rufus here in the Live Impact News studio. As mentioned before we took our quick break, we do want to get back to that earlier forum that happened in Washington, D.C. this evening. This is the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States speaking, Olha Stepanishina. And this comes, of course, as we see this resurgence in the headlines of the push to end the war in Ukraine, with most recently President Volodymyr Zelensky discussing how he would be potentially open to taking part with some sort of meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary. We know that President Trump is set to meet in the coming weeks with the Russian president, and really just in general pushes by Zelensky to see the U.S. do a bit more when it comes to pushing to end the war. So let's listen in to this earlier chat.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's indeed a very interesting format, and I immediately thank you all for coming. That's also very precious to me. It's always interesting to hear somebody presenting you, because this is someone who presents the way he sees you. But thank you so much. You've left no detail unspoken. So
we don't know about that. We're just getting started.
So all the major things are there. So indeed, I was onboarded to Washington less than 1 month after I stopped performing my function as the member of the government. I was a serving member of the government for the last 5 years, including the first days and minutes when the war started. I was also performing as the member of Security and Defense Council, which has been a major military and political cabinet of Ukraine. So we met the full-scale invasion all together, and we were not divided since. So the decision of my president and entire nation to nominate me as a key person representing Ukraine here in the U.S. is based on two major pillars. First, United States is now a country playing a key role in ending the war in the center of Europe, the bloodiest war ever seen by the humanity since the end of the Second World War, the First and the Second World War. So there's no more important place in the entire planet for me as for Ukrainian to be it. Second major pillar is the background, basically, and the experience we gained through these 5 years in the government. As you've mentioned, I've been a chief negotiator in terms of Ukraine's accession to EU, which means that one of the key functions I had as the member of the government was to keep the unanimity among all 27 EU member states, which are 27 independent democratic countries. And they had to say yes every time they needed when it came to Ukraine. So this was quite a 24/7 job, and this is the experience we gained together for years in the government, but especially when the war started. It was related to sanctions, to financial support, to military support. And also the second very important issue is that I was in charge of reforms in Ukraine related to building the resilience and the functionality of our state throughout the war, and also bringing it closer to European Union. So as one of the key allies of Ukrainian president, I've been chosen to be among those people who prepared the key documents for our engagement with the United States. And since 2024, I've been a permanent member of all the delegations led by President to meet the presidents of the United States, and also even back in a time, President-elect Trump, even before the formal inauguration. So this has brought together all the dots. They were connected, and this decision was taken. It's my particular honor that before completing a month in my position as the ambassador, I welcomed President Zelensky 2 times in the United States for his meeting with President Trump. A number of not less important engagements are planned for the next weeks. Of course, you have heard from the presentation that I'm not a career diplomat. I didn't have a diplomatic background, and my mandate here is a part of diplomatic, is also political. So the major effort is to make sure that Ukraine and the United States are building bilateral relations, strengthening efforts to end the war, which means that both sides has to communicate all the time, have to read the signals properly, but also to leave no second wasted for anything we can do to save people who are dying.
I think that's it. We're done. She answered all my questions.
There was only one.
That was just, I didn't even start. I wanted to ask if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're from, and where were you, and what were you doing on February 24th, 2022?
Well, originally I'm from Odessa, which is the most southern place of Ukraine. It's the port city, so I think, as most of you know, Ukraine has regained its independence only in 1991, and before that, almost 80 years, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. So, and of course, this part of our history has really affected a lot of generations of Ukrainians in different parts of Ukraine. But I was so happy to be born in Odessa because it's a port city. You have a lot of cultures and nationalities there. So only 80 years of occupation was a very small period of time. So I had a little bit of Jewish culture, a little bit of Greek culture, a little bit of Romanian. So I think it really survived a lot of people from the city I'm coming from being, infected by propaganda, by disinformation, or generally by Soviet occupation. So this is the city I'm coming from, and I started to live in the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, in 2002. And the morning of the war, when the full-scale war started, I was with my family. I took kids and grandparents away from Kiev, and then I went to the office. So already at 5 o'clock in the morning, I was in the office joining the members of the Security and Defense Council and the President to make first decisions needed for a country to continue functioning, for a country to remain operational, and for a country to survive. So these were the first moments.
So it's been nearly 4 years, actually 3 years and 8 months and 26 days, as we said, 7 months and 26 days. Give us, if you would, your assessment of the situation as it stands right now, and what are the main obstacles preventing Ukraine and Russia from reaching some kind of a breakthrough?
Breakthrough, you mean, what do you mean?
An end to the fighting, I don't want to say ceasefire, because that can be interpreted
breakthrough, I'm coming from a country in war. In my understanding, breakthrough could be something really different.
Let's put it this way, to regain the territories that were taken from you.
I think there's simply no comparison in any part of the world or any part of the history I can put the real situation in Ukraine. So, I mean, that's not possible to explain because, again, as I've been answering the previous question, one of the key tasks we had, a part of, defending ourselves and fighting for ourselves and for our lives, is to be able to live in this country throughout the war. So, literally, if I can say this is a 5-star war, because you have a military aggression, you have bombs falling over your head, but in the morning, all the country wakes up, wears the suits, and goes to work. People continue living their life as part of the survival. And it's like it's not possible to put in any framework of a normality. And but at the same time, we were not ready to face the brutal instruments of war, which Russia has started to apply, which is the massive means of demoralization of populations. There was a lot of massive massacre, I would say, among civilian population in parts which were occupied, which were already occupied, were not those zones of active military
I think we should point out that, the war didn't really start in February of 2022. I mean, this has been going on since 2014 with the occupation of Crimea, the occupation of the Donbass, Donetsk, Luhansk. So,
All right, folks, just a bit of the beginning of that forum with Ukrainian ambassador to the United States from earlier today. Hey, our time here on Live Impact is coming to a close. We turn you over to our next hour of programming. Don't forget to stick around for the news at 11. Just keep it here on WCNC+.